Welcome, podcasters. You are listening to another episode of Tell Me Why, a resource for athletes, coaches, and parents in sport. Co-hosted by Dr. Ginny Cristerna and U.S. Speed Skating Hall of Fame inductee Patrick Wentland. This podcast is developed as a resource for athletes, parents, coaches, and referees looking to improve player development and performance. Conversations and opinions expressed on the show are not intended as medical or clinical advice. Today, we are discussing parental support in sports. How much is too much and what can go wrong? Both of us, Ginny, we love this conversation. We've had it quite a few times, and it's a hot topic these days. I think we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, because, whatever could go wrong will go wrong. So it's no shortage of topics.
And it just happens to be a Monday today.
Oh, my goodness.
It's been like that. So what I'd like to do really is maybe we can talk a little bit about the negatives of too much parent support, too much parent involvement, and go into what we can do to fix it after that. Maybe, like we're talking, what's the problem with it? Mostly, we have irate parents on the sidelines, and we're embarrassing the kids. We're disrupting the games. We're disrupting the coaches, sometimes scaring people, and sometimes it can turn a little violent. These are all things just briefly that I've hit on. What can you add?
Well, I think you hit on the big ones. It can just make the game not fun for like everybody, like even other parents. Other parents, are cringing and like, hey, my kid wants to play. Stop talking to my kid, because too much parent involvement in an unhealthy manner during a game, they'll abandon that game. So that kids don't play.
And you being a referee for soccer, you have had some pretty good experience with some of this. What are some of like the main things that were, parents, the over excitement is maybe a nice way to put it from these parents? What's some of that you've seen that really affects the game?
Pat is very nice. He is the reason that the world continues to spin. I'm the reason the world will stop. No, I'm kidding. So one of the things, Pat, is you're right. The overexcitement, it can go either way, right? So it can be, too much of yay, good job. Right. Or it can be too much of you suck. That's horrible. What was that? And then just go downhill from there. So it really depends. We prefer the overexcitement of yay, good job, and just an exciting game, because most of the games, to be very candid, are pretty exciting. So, yeah, usually it doesn't go well when parents get frustrated with the outcome or with the calls or with their players' performance.
Yeah. And my background is mostly coaching along with being an athlete. And I think from the coach's standpoint, it really throws me off. I mean, I'm usually, if I'm coaching, I'm all in on an event, and I'm totally focused, watching athletes, paying attention to what the competition's doing, what's going on, watching referees, and all of a sudden you have a parent or anybody a little irate on the sidelines, getting a little disruptive. Throws me off, throws the athletes off. I'm assuming that parents' goal is to be helpful in some way, shape, or form.
You would think, but some parents' goals are to be just involved. They want to be involved and they don't know how to be involved other than being very negative, very unhappy, very much the expert of everything sports. It's just very ineffective. It's unhelpful. It just makes the game, again, I'm going back to that phrase, it's just not fun anymore. So because now everybody's focused and paying attention to this parent, right? And nobody's heck is in the game.
Right.
Now it would be different if it were a professional game. Right. If you have like U.S. men's soccer, where, there's 80,000 people or 40,000 people in the stands, that's part of the game. But when it's like a U15, a U8, believe it or not. Or a rec game, it's like there's maybe 40 folks talking directly to the players, and they're right up on the players. And these players, their minds just aren't developed to block it out. So, they take it all in.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it too. So we have, amateur sports for the most part, and we have excited parents on the sidelines. We have athletes trying to do their game, coaches trying to support their athletes. What are some of the issues that can happen when these parents get overly involved? I mean, especially from the referee. I know from the coach's standpoint, like I mentioned, it just throws me off. It throws the game off. Throws the athletes off. You have the background, the refereeing background. What can the referees do in these situations?
We can do a lot with a little, right? So we can abandon a game at any time. If it gets too disruptive, or there's a threat of harm, or if there's referee abuse, we don't have to referee that game. And so that's one thing. And that's the most powerful thing referees have in their tool bag. But what I will tell listeners is that the coach has a lot of power too. The coaches, and you and I were talking about this once, their clubs have, been growing and using the parent code of conduct. And each parent has to sign it if they want their kid to be on the team, be in the club. And there's a list of expectations in terms of how parents behave. And if they don't, there are some sanctions or some consequences for that parent and eventually that player if it gets really out of hand. So those are some things. So if there's referees, we have a little, but we can do a lot. We can basically shut it down. But most of it comes from the coaches or the clubs. And what I will tell you, Pat, is that I've noticed when parents are acting like that, the coach usually acts like that, right? The coaches set the tone, right? So whenever I see disrespectful athletes and parents, I always look to the coach and to the club, because you'd be surprised. I do tell folks, players, their families, they find their clubs, right? They find the club that best suits their personality. So when a club is known for being disrespectful or rude or unpleasant or mischievous or, provocative, best believe there's always in a referee's mind the club that they probably belong to, because that usually has a reputation.
Very interesting. And it's funny because I in the sports I've been involved with, I have not had the pleasure of having that parental code of conduct, or I'm assuming athletes sign it too. Yes. I think that's a great tool. It probably needs to be used more. If you have a legal document that's stating, what can happen when things get out of control or somebody's negative on the sideline, you have a little leverage. Yeah. Sports that I've been involved in, it really comes down to the referee or the coach expelling an athlete, expelling a parent, quitting the match, the game, the competition in one direction or the other. And I've seen that happen. And it's too bad if it's, due to one parent or a couple of parents that are getting unruly, and the athletes suffer. Mm-hmm. And, I really like that code of conduct idea. Have you seen it enforced? I mean, does it get enforced?
I have. Back in the day, my kids were with a club, and they did not put up with that. This was pre-COVID, of course, but they did not put up with that, because the reputation of the club, it was tied to a major league soccer club. And so it just got shut down. Like, that's not okay. We'll kick you out. Right? They don't immediately kick the kid out, but they'll say, parent, you got to drop your kid off. You can't come to practices. You can't come to games, just your kid, right? Or you can have someone else come in your place. And if they continue to do that, they're like, look, we can't even have your kid here because you're not even following through with that. And you're still showing up to practices. You're still being disruptive, just things like that. But I've not heard of many stories where when those the code of conduct has been enforced, or they have one in place, that they've even had to expel a kid. Usually the parent will self-select out at the end of the season, and they'll find another club.
Okay.
Usually
Wow,
the club
that's
we all
great.
have heard about.
Yeah, right. The club that fits them. Well,
There you go.
that's helpful. We talked a little bit about, some of the negatives, and we've all seen it. I mean, we've heard even lately, last couple of years, there's been shootings at baseball games and things. It's getting out of control. I told you just at a side story one point. I was at a competition once. We were racing, and there was a parent who, you know, they were sick and tired of their kid not hearing them during the race. So this parent showed up with an electric bullhorn in an ice rink. I mean, this is like in a hockey rink size rink, and proceeded just to yell over the plexiglass with his
Oh,
bullhorn at the athlete. That the poor young daughter was so mortified and embarrassed. The father didn't care. They tried to throw him out of the rink. He happened to be an attorney. He started spouting legal advice. He was allowed to stay until a couple of weeks later, where they finally developed rules to disallow the electric megaphones. And boy, what a poor showing for that. I mean, that poor daughter, and then she had a son that skated as well. They were teased about that for years to come.
yeah. And I don't think, and I'm listening to this, and my mouth is open, just kind of agape. Like, I feel embarrassed for the athlete because the parents, they don't care. They think they've convinced themselves with some kind of magical mental gymnastics that it's okay. And it's just like, no, that's not okay. And the scars that the athletes are left with is just so unfortunate because for what? It's a sport, it's a game, it's supposed to be fun. And so it goes back to it's not even fun anymore.
Right, right. No, it was hard for everybody to watch that. And any other parents who want to yell for their kid casually, forget it. When you got someone with a megaphone out there trying
Right, you
to
can't compete with the megaphone. It's not like he's like, I love you, you're great. It's like, you suck. It's like, what?
Yeah, it was a typical go faster, turn left, do whatever. But
Oh, geez.
yeah, so, hey, let's discuss a little some positive ways that the parents can support their kids during any kind of event, race, competition. What do we if a parent really wants to get involved instead of being obnoxious on the sideline? What's a great way for a parent to support their kid from the sideline and the coach and the team and be involved in a healthy atmosphere, a healthy way?
Sure. Well, I remember like there's a ton of things that parents can do, but I remember something that tends to work pretty well after you and I spoke once. And it's, just encourage them. Unlucky, that's unlucky. Get up, you got it, reset. You're good, you're good. Right. Just those reassuring, statements that encourage them to keep going. Right. So they don't get bogged down in the frustration of having made a mistake. Right. They can brush it off knowing that they have their external support. Same thing with coaches. Unlucky, like the play is over. Right. Whether it's basketball, football, soccer, baseball, or even, speed skating. It's like, OK, you did what you did. Hey, get back up and keep finishing. And I mean, come on, Pat, like how many times have you seen somebody fall and get back up and just pass everyone? Right.
Yeah.
Those things can happen if their head is right. And so if parents really want to be involved, it's about reminding the athlete, get back up, get back. That's the whole point of sports, right? That's the whole point of life, getting them ready for life. Get back up. It's all good. You got this. Just do your best, whatever that is. Like that makes the game fun. That gives the athlete that kind of internal drive, right?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, and that is sports. That is life. It's really, I mean, how many people are going to go to a professional sport or the Olympics, World Championships? It's very few. But the athletes that can grow up through a sport and learn to continually get better and to push themselves to get up when they've fallen down or been knocked down or lose a game, that's the epitome of really what we do here. That's why I've always loved sports. That's why I coach, just to help those athletes continue to reach new heights and go further than they've gone before. That I love how you put that. So that was great.
Thank you. I'm
One,
glad you love that.
good. One other thing that actually I was thinking about while you were talking too was so many of these athletes, especially the good ones, the hardworking ones, they're going to be hard enough on themselves after a mistake, after a bad play, whatever. I've seen so many times after a competition or a game where a parent will come up to an athlete and, oh, you could have done that better. You should have done this. Why did you let them push you around? You could have played that different. Meanwhile, the whole time, of course, yeah, the coach just yelled at me. My parents are now going on me. I know I did. I know I screwed up. I could have done this better. The poor kid, adult, whatever it is already like taking the brunt of the punishment. They're already hard on themselves. Really, I think, and this came back to the parental support part, is like if the parent can really, after a game or a competition, just like, hey, you did great. You had a couple mistakes out there, but we saw you do this, and this that we've never seen you before, or you were more aggressive here, or you had a really couple nice plays. You were more assertive. You handed this. You worked with your team well there, whatever it was, like some positive reinforcement, especially if you have an athlete that continuously is maybe a little hard on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
As a coach, as a parent, boy, I think that takes you miles ahead just for the support part as a parent.
Absolutely. And I like the way you put that, Pat, because it's not taking away from the feeling, right? It's not saying, oh, no, it's fine, right? You're saying, yeah, that was tough. Look at what other things you did. That wasn't the only thing you did. Look at these other things you did. So it's acknowledging, yeah, that's a loss, and that's a tough loss. But I also saw you do these things, right? And so it's about perspective, right? Toxic positivity is when you're just focusing on what you did well. And that doesn't give a person the space or the opportunity to sit with those feelings, right? They're going to beat themselves up like nobody on this planet. You are spot on with that, but they don't have to sit in it. And what you've just described is going, hey, bud, that was tough. Oh man, so many unlucky shots, or yep, you guys, something was different about you guys today. And that has to be a tough loss. I also noticed something. You guys actually did X, Y, and Z more, which usually you guys lose by like 50 points. Today was only 19. That's incredible. Right? And so that kind of perspective allows them to see how they've gotten better, how they've developed either some strategy or some courage to try these new things. Right? So we're not saying take away from, hey, stop feeling bad. It's about going, yeah, that's a tough loss. But I also saw you guys show up in a way you guys played like a team today, right? And so I really like the way you put that support piece, because everybody needs that, right? We don't want to overlook the mistakes we might have made. We all make mistakes, but we don't want to wallow in them, because it's hard to move on if we sit there too long.
Yeah, I know. My daughter played soccer, and with the other kids that I coach in other sports, it's, I just remember talking to them about, usually they're down. If they're not, or maybe they forgot something, like, hey, yeah, a couple of those plays, I could see they were tough, or you got pushed around, or you missed that thing there. But boy, you really did really good in these other things. And you brought up the thing about falling down in a race. I've had, work with a lot of speed skaters, and I've had skaters, be maybe out in front and fall down all by themselves, and some of them just give up right there and don't do anything. Some of them get right back going in there and qualify for the next round or win a race. And, those are great support system or areas that, you can remind them, like, hey, yeah, you fell down, but boy, you got back up, you got it going, or you could have gotten back up and got it going and maybe done something instead of just giving up and letting that be the end of it.
Right. Those are teachable moments. Right. How many videos have you watched, Pat, or have we all watched, where it was the person, it was the underdog, and they came from behind, and we just were mind blown when they when they took it off. Like those are the stories that we're talking about right now that the parents, put their thumbs down on instead of going, oh my God, right? It's, hey, you got this, get back up. It's developing a sense of resiliency in an individual where no matter how bad things are, you get back up and you keep trying because you don't know how it's going to end. It's not over yet.
Well put.
Yeah.
Well put. Yeah. So, and while you're talking, I was thinking a few other ways that, I mean, we didn't really discuss on when the parents on the sidelines, they're getting into the game, they're yelling, you went over this a little bit. Yeah, there's some great positive things. Say, hey, keep it going, run, go get the ball or whatever, just get out there and push yourself. What are some other things that come to mind, because yeah, some parents are like, there's a bad thing happens to their kid, they get taken down accidentally, or we don't see the play, the ref doesn't see the play, someone gets fouled, happens all the time. Parents get irate. What's a parent to do? They obviously are a little limited on the sideline. They're going to get huffy. They're going to get out of control. Yeah, you can tell them to take a deep breath and like, all right, somebody's got to hold this. Who needs to talk to the coach? Who needs to talk to the athlete? How do we get these parents to have a sense of say before they lose it and get overly energetic?
I always, tell people to walk away. Like if you need a minute, adult time now, those are real things, right? And I'm sure you have some thoughts about what parents can do and what works for parents as well. But, when you get to that point, it's sometimes you just got to walk away because to be very fair to parents, because I'm a parent, my kids, all four of them did sports, that's your kid. You see somebody knock your kid out or you knock your kid down, you're going to go into, mama bear and papa bear mode. You can't help it. It's your kid. So sometimes we have to walk away. One of the things we did in soccer is there was our team, one would be responsible for the gummies. And we would bring like 1 million bags of gummies because we all had something to say, including me. Right. And so we would eat gummies. Whenever we had something to say, and we would chew on them for a while. And then we stopped because we all gained like 5-7 pounds, so it was more behavior modification. But sometimes you do need to walk away and let yourself know it's okay that I'm frustrated because that's my kid, but it's not okay what I want to do with that. And then a lot of times, do talk to the coach, but coaches say, give it 24 hours. Don't talk to me when you're upset because there's not a conversation to be had. So there's usually a 24-hour cool down period. So those are some things off the top of my head. I want to know what some thoughts you have are because, you guys don't know Pat, but Pat is a silent person. He's very thoughtful and very wise. And he has all these thoughts.
That's at least what I try to get you to believe. Yeah, I guess it comes down to the sport and what happened. Like I said, my daughters played soccer, and I remember there were some times where she was taken out, whether she was off balance and got pushed or whatever. And as you said, as a parent, Papa Bear goes off, and you just want to start yelling at the ref, yelling at the other team. Obviously, it's falling on deaf ears. You're not getting anywhere with that. Maybe it makes you feel better to scream a little bit. Great. Soccer's a tough one. We've talked, the parents really don't have any input in there besides yelling, go, 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 score a goal. Other sports I've been involved with, I've had, as in me coaching with speed skating and other things, I've had coaches or parents immediately run up to me, yelling, screaming, hey, did you see what happened? I want to file a protest. We need to do this. We need to do that. And, most of the time as a coach, I can talk them off the ledge and calm them down and, all right, this is what I saw. This is what the ruling is. This is what the referee is going to call. We can file a protest, but you're going to lose the money you're going to put down on it. Or, yeah, it was a bad call. Let's file a protest. Let's do this. A lot of times, yeah, parents don't even have access to referees or coaches in a lot of sports too. So that really puts them out and about. Maybe there's somewhere they can go along after the game or like you said, 24 hours later, approach a coach and say, hey, we ever play these guys again, you need to be on them because, or have a talk with the ref before the game because I'm sick and tired of my kid getting pushed around or whatever it is. That like I said, I guess every sport's different, but yeah, it's very limiting as a parent. So I guess you really got to watch what you can and can't do.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I do psychotherapy, and I work with adults and athletes. And a lot of times I do see parents and I'm like, this isn't even about the game. This is them living vicariously through their kid. And this is stirring them up because it's soccer or football. It's like getting mad when you get tackled, when your kid gets tackled in football. It's football, right? Yeah. It's not a dirty tackle. It's just like, oh my God, is my baby okay? It's just like, hopefully, right? But you do the game was football, right? And you know that there are certain risks that come with that. And I don't want to minimize that because again, all four of my kids, right? So you can get knocked out, for example, in Taekwondo, right? And it's just one of those things. Be mindful of the sport you put your kid in, and then also ask yourself, why am I putting my kid in this sport?
Isn't that like the goal of the game in Taekwondo is literally to knock out and
that way that it's over, it's clear, you won, right?
And every match you go into, you can be expected that the other guy is trying to knock you out.
Exactly. So when you get knocked out, you can't get mad at the guy for not, right? That would be silly. That's part of the game. I do tell some of the parents that do come into me or try to have a conversation with me, which I don't anymore because it's gotten that crazy, you might want to look at that. Because in soccer, it's a trip. Well, that's a card. No, it's not. It's a trifling fall. It's part of the game. It wasn't, careless. It wasn't reckless. They come in with something. And as a referee, as a coach, it's not our job to figure out what that is for the parent. But I do encourage parents when they notice this is getting to be a lot for them, maybe talking with somebody can help them so that way they can enjoy their kids' youth, right? Enjoy their kids' sport. Because you don't want to be the kid with that dad with the bullhorn. Yeah. I promise you.
Well, that's a great segue into really the last part. We got a few minutes left to talk about, I like to go into the problem, where it's at, what it is, and then maybe let's just address what do we do to fix it? What can parents do? What can coaches do? What can athletes do? We talked about this a little bit, and that's what you said. Maybe if it's really bad, you need to talk to someone about it. The other part you mentioned, taking 24 hours and calming down. What else you think? What if you're an irate parent, or if you know parents like that in games, what's coming to mind where you can think like, all right, this is what I need to do or they need to do?
I'm going to tell you, hands down, if you're a parent, you never approach a ref. Never, ever, 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 unless you're saying great job. And even then, the climate's so bad, there are places in this country where the refs will leave as soon as the game is over. They're not trying to say goodbye or anything. That's how bad it's gotten. Yeah. As a parent, never approach a referee. You will get in trouble before they will. And there's a lot for a spectator, aka a parent, to lose. Right. In this age of videos and in this age of companies trying to keep up a reputation, the one thing you don't want to have happen is get caught on video berating a minor, berating a referee crew. It's not a good look.
I think that's a great point. And while you're saying that, I'm thinking, you're right, because I think, and even in most sports where the athlete and the coach and some of them aren't even allowed to approach the ref, most refs in a normal situation will accept a comment, a level-headed comment from a coach or an athlete, say, hey, that guy just, he's being aggressive or he pushed me or whatever. Typically the ref will be like, I'm watching you, I'll keep an eye on it, or whatever it is. So good. That's a great point.
Yeah, just never approach the ref, especially if you're angry. That's a piece of advice for life. Never approach someone when you're seeing red or when you're bothered. To your point, yes, if there's a question, generally speaking, most referees, we don't mind answering a question, right? Because worst case scenarios, we'll say, that's not what I saw, right? Because most sports are about angles.
Yep.
Right. If you're in basketball or even with an umpire, it's about, in baseball, soccer, whatever. It's really about the angle. Like if you saw something from behind, but my angle is in a different position than yours, that's not what I'm going to see. And in any sport, we can't call what we don't see. We just can't. That would be unfair. That would be like you saying so-and-so murdered someone and I want you to go and testify to that. It's just like, I didn't see it, but we can try to piece together. But in a game, we can't call what we don't see, and we're not going to.
Right.
Now, you can tell us, well, can you keep an eye on that, please? Absolutely. And we're going to say yes, because we do want to keep an eye on that. But it's 6 eyeballs if you're in soccer, or maybe 8 if you have a 4th referee, versus 400 pairs of eyeballs or something. We're just not going to see everything that they see. So if people go in understanding, look, we're doing the best we can. We're going to call what we can. Our job is to try to keep these kids safe, but understand sometimes a foul, regardless of whatever the sport is, it's going to look worse than it is.
Yeah. And actually, that's a great point, because I've been in many situations as a coach where the ref makes, as a coach, my view is that the ref made a bad call. And a lot of times there's little things here and there that, most of the time you let go. But as a coach, again, or an athlete, my feeling is if I start yelling at that coach right away and they start hearing my voice in a negative tone, when that big thing comes up, when that thing that I really do need to address the referee with, they're already like not listening. They don't want to hear from me. I think with my years of experience, I've learned enough, and I've even told athletes that have come back up to me, you got to yell at the referee, coach. You got to yell at him. And I'm like, listen, I know you may have gotten wronged out there. I see it. I saw what happened, but this was small. I'm saving it for the big thing when something really happens that we do need to address, and we need to address right away. That way, I'm going to keep telling the ref they're doing a good job, get them on my side until that time where I really need to express a concern for something that was dangerous that happened out there, or something really bad.
Sure. That's smart, right? This is called picking and choosing your battles. If you fight every battle, you're not going to win that war. You're going to get killed on one of these battlefields, right? So you have to be very mindful of the battles that you pick with your coach, right? With your ref, right? With your players, because, if we go back to parents, Pat, there are parents who complain about everything to the coach. My kid didn't get as much playing time as I thought they should. My kid this, my kid that, my kid's not on the A team. My kid's on the B team. Why is my kid? And you just and after a while, they notice that their kid gets less playing time, or their kid gets relegated to a lower team, right? Because the kid comes with a parent. And the coaches don't want to be bothered. Like if you had a question, hey, coach, I'm just wondering why my kid is and they tell you, it's just, okay. And then you work on that and the kid gets better and the kid still doesn't get playtime. You can go, well, we did these other things. Is there something that we're missing, right? In terms of partnering and like, what does my kid need to work through? Not what does he or she need to do, but what do they need to work through? What do they need to improve on? What do you see as the problem that's limiting their ability to play or their ability to start? And it might be they're great. They're fantastic, right? This person is even better. So we happen to have all of the great, fantastic players at this club. If you want to start, you might want to go to a different club because we have the best of the best. And so while you're the best, you're not the best of the best, right? And that might be a truth, especially as they're going out for like these elite clubs, right? So it really depends.
That's great. One thing we hadn't really talked about a whole lot that you just mentioned was really the practice situations. We're talking about games where, parents are getting irate and where it's a little bit more on the line, even though, like you said before, it's most of the time it's a grade school, high school, whatever, maybe even a college game. It's not the World Championships. It's not the Olympics. It's not the professional, the World Series. Practice, I've had many parents come up to me wanting to give their input. Hey, you're not watching little Johnny enough, or little Johnny needs help with this. He needs help with that. He can't do this right. And, I tell you, after practice, I am normally more than happy to talk with any parent and go through little things. And most of the time, I'll even offer them advice. Yes, I see little Johnny doing this, and if he really wants to get better, here's a few exercises he can do at home to help him with this. Here's some skills that maybe you can, as a parent, you can help Johnny with this. I'm happy to show him right now how to work on those things and how to practice them if you can take him home and work on those.
And you hit the nail on the head. You need to have little Johnny practice when he's not here, or little Johnny needs to practice when he's not here. And you can tell. You can tell. We talked about natural versus made athletes. There are some athletes who have to practice a lot more than others. And some athletes, it just comes to them. But when they get to a certain point, you can't tell the difference between the two, right? Because the made athlete has practiced it so much, it looks natural now. Whereas now the natural athlete needs to learn a few things or two. It might be harder because you can't coach them. But the point is that mom and dad are going to have to take some responsibility for little Johnny going home and practicing and them being involved in that.
Great. That's exactly what I'm thinking. So we didn't discuss a whole lot of practices, but that's a huge thing. I mean, because a lot of times parents are getting involved in practice, and I like that. I like to see parents at practice. I like to see them involved with what their kids doing, especially the ones that will take them home and practice with them, not expect little Johnny to be coming to practice to be a superstar the next day, even though he didn't have any extra practice at home. You can only do so much in that half hour, 2 hours, whatever of your practice time. There has to, if anybody is struggling and that parent wants their kid to get better, there has to be some off practice training with the parents or with another coach or with somebody for them to get better.
I'm going to have a caveat here and say it's not about mom and dad training Johnny, that sucks. And it's about having, the practices with Johnny in a fun way. Right. Because I've seen plenty of parents where it's like, well, that's why you didn't make the team. Right. Yeah. As opposed to it being a way to bond and the parent learning to and not expecting perfection, but really expecting to, help their child develop. And so, again, that comes down to that parent needing to figure out what's going on with them. Like, why am I really doing this? Because little Johnny might be enjoying it just where he is. Little Johnny might enjoy being on the C team or on the B team.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. I think that's for all levels. I mean, beginners up to elite level, same thing, same parents, same advice for the athletes. There's always something that they can be doing better or more of with or without parents on their own and making improvements.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's great, Jane. We covered a lot of stuff, and I think some great information. Hopefully people can really get some good advice from this. Definitely, if you out there in podcast land, if you have comments or suggestions for us, definitely leave us a message. If you have other topics you'd like us to discuss, leave us a note and we'll get on it and definitely take you up on that. Any last comments on any of that, Jenny?
I just want to say, parents, have fun. Right, this is your chance. You kind of sometimes your last chance before you become a grandparent and your knees go out. But, this is your last chance really to enjoy your kid and be a kid again. Right. And just allow yourself to have reveries and memories with your kid. Who cares if your kid makes it to the pro, right? And it's so rare. What's really important right now is not really for you, but for your kid. When I was having fun, how were my family? How were my parents involved in that? Was it fun with them, or was it horrible? Right? And so think about it like that. The sky's not going to fall if they lose. The sky's not going to fall if they win. The sky's just going to stay there, whatever the outcome is. So just enjoy your kid, man, and just cheer for them. And if they make a mistake, before you point out that mistake, I want you to look back on your own life and tell me when you have not made a mistake and someone hasn't given you grace.
that is perfect lead into one of our next conversations, Jenny, we're going to have regarding the passion of an athlete in the sport. And really, I'm a huge fan of this. If the athlete doesn't have that passion, there's nothing that the parent's going to do to get them to go in. But we're going to discuss that another day. It's a great topic.
Oh,
man. Great lead in for that. But great advice. Really, yeah. Let them go out and play and have fun and enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. And parents, you'll find out it's a lot more fun, when you're enjoying your kid play. Just watch them play.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right.